Okay, so today's video I think is going to be super useful. I'm very lucky that I have treadmill data, VO2 max testing, threshold testing, all the way from 2004 right up till now. What I'm going to do today is go through how that physiology changes over a 20-year period, what you could do at home to start moving your physiology forward, why back in 2004 I could run at 14 kilometers an hour and it take the same out of me that it now does at 18 kilometers an hour. How I've gone from 15 kilometers an hour at my LT pace to now 20.5 kilometers an hour. How does that work? How does it help? What can you start doing at home? If you've found that over a 5-year period, your 5K PB, your 10K PB, your half marathon, marathon PB, they've stayed the same, well, I'm going to go through what superficial fitness is, and perhaps that's why your fitness isn't moving forward. Let's get into it. Okay, so while I put some running shoes on, what I'm going to show you now is what 14 kilometers an hour looks like. Now that's moved to 18 kilometers an hour, and that's that steady state lactate threshold. That's the first threshold we're going to talk about. Then I'm going to show you 16 kilometers an hour, and that's now moved all the way to 20.5 kilometers an hour. And you race a marathon in between your thresholds. But I'm going to show you how that looks on the treadmill, what kind of speed that is, and that massive difference in speed that's happened over those 20 years. This stuff takes time, but if you start working on some of the things that I'm going to talk about in this video, you'll fast forward how quickly you progress these thresholds. This very long lasting, very useful, very, very beneficial changes to your physiology to help you start racing faster. Okay, so let's start with the very basics. You've got something from 14k an hour to 18, you've got something from 16 to 20.5. How do you know what was the test? Let's get some context. What could you do at home to test this yourself? You could go to a lab like I did. In 2004, I was training in Belfast, Northern Ireland, part of a club called North Belfast Harriers. My coach at the time, Damien Gill, very enthusiastic, loved running, loved helping us as athletes at the time. He went across to England, he went to a convention or seminar on how to be better at running. A coach there called Alan Story met Damien, gave him this idea, basically this tip that start working on threshold. Alan Story was coaching Mo Farah at the time, and this then became the let's get this done. So we all got tested, and then we started using threshold training in our own training. Every Thursday we would go to a grass field, we would do our threshold run, 30 to 36 minutes at that threshold heart rate.
Right lads, we just go. Easy now, remember it's 5:45 pace we're looking, not 5:20.
And it was crazy how quickly and how well that it worked. Instead of taking 2 minutes per lap, suddenly it was taking 1 minute 50 seconds per lap. Over 30 minutes, that's almost 3 minutes. That is huge. Then our track stuff was getting better. Then I went from couldn't win a cross-country race to Stephen's winning cross-country races. Wasn't doing that much on the track to Stephen's running pretty quick on the track. Threshold was huge in my development. Now, what you can do to test this at home is try to figure out if a lab nearby, Jordanstown, there's heaps of places in Ireland, there's heaps of places in England. I'm sure all over America, if you Google, you'll find threshold testing. If you can't get in a lab to do it, go to a track, do roughly 8 times a K, which is similar to the 3-minute stages in the lab. Start at easy pace, take 30 to 60 seconds rest at the end of each kilometer, do easy pace, and roughly once you get the number like 4 or 5, then what you want to be doing is getting to around about your marathon pace. Number 5 or 6 might be like your half marathon pace, and then 7, 8, possibly 9, 10 if you have to, is going to be like 5K, 3K, etc. It's going to get pretty hard. At the end of each stage, write down your rate of perceived exertion, write down your heart rate, and then just write down a rough little comment about how it felt. Then you can come back every 6-7 weeks and you can check in on this little test. If rep number 5 just so happened to be 7-minute mile pace, Well, in 6-7 weeks, you can check at 7-minute mile pace, has my heart rate came down, has that RPE score came down, you can see if you're making progress. In your own head, figure out around about which rep number you could only have held a 3 to 4 word statement or answer, or not conversation, but you get the point. If someone asked you a question, you could answer with a 3 to 4 word answer. That's roughly going to be that LT2 threshold pace. But that's the context, that's 2004, and that's how you can test it at home. But now let's actually look at that first test and then where we are now with my testing and how I achieved that progress. All right, so what moves the threshold forward? Probably not Starbucks Java chip frappuccinos, but on a very serious level, this is my progression with threshold. And so you can pause that, you can have a deeper look at it, but you're looking at going from 14k an hour to 18k an hour at LT1. Then you're looking at LT2 going from 16k an hour all the way to probably like 20.5 kilometers an hour at its absolute best. In a nutshell, what has created that? 20 years of some kind of training, sometimes altitude, bringing gym in place, better nutrition, going to bed early, not seeing all the sacrifices, as people call them, linked to running, early to bed, better nutrition, foam rolling, stretching, getting over the fact that some people see that as, oh no, I need to make these sacrifices to be a good runner. Stop running, retire, stop doing all these things, and realize that your mental health goes to shit. Your physical appearance can go to shit because you can gain a load of weight and then you don't feel good about yourself. These so-called sacrifices that likely led to my progression in threshold paces, they're a gift. Having something like running as an excuse to go to bed early is a gift. Having something like running as your reason for doing some yoga, meditation, journaling, that's a fucking gift, you guys. I can't stress that highly enough. I used to see it as chores, and that's why my progression over some of the years perhaps halted. But this stuff isn't a chore, it's a gift. Start working on these little things, and you'll notice that your progression will be better, more consistent. You'll get better every year rather than just making little jumps and then maybe results go backwards. Focus in on those little details, the recovery stuff, your hydration, getting to bed early, the foam rolling, look after the psychology. But now we're going to talk about the actual training that might start to move your threshold forward. All that good stuff, you can check out more on the website, joggingroom.com. That's the how to execute training, how to recover the best way, how to work on your psychology, what should you eat, what should you do in the gym. That's what makes the professionals often as good as they are, the how to do these things, the how to be better recovered for the next training day to absorb more of the training. It's in those little details. But let's now talk about some of the actual training. Okay, so what you can see there is some sessions now, little bit of backlog-ish. All training will help to improve threshold. So it's likely that if you add volume or you're running more, it's going to move your threshold forward. The key to this video is to start thinking of moving your threshold forward, giving that a priority, not just hopefully it moves forward when I do my hills. Hopefully it moves forward when I do my VO2 session. Hopefully when I run my next race, it moves forward. Some of these sessions are very specific to LT1 and LT2. So they're kind of similar, but you're looking at if you're not in a marathon build-up and you're just focusing on moving threshold forward, well then sessions can be anything from 6K to probably 12K. I break it into reps, and that sort of reduces the fatigue a little bit so the body can come back to train in another day Easier because it recovers quicker. The total cost of the session is a bit lower, but you get the same benefits. For now, because for now we're working on improving speed of threshold. When it comes to half marathon training, marathon training, in some of my plans on Jogging Room, well then we move to extension. When you move to extension, you're not trying to improve speed, you're trying to improve for how long you can run at threshold without getting tired. For now, we're focusing on speed. So some of those sessions are 8 times a K, 60 seconds rest, run at either LT1 or LT2. And then what you can do is things like 5 times 2K, you can do the first K at LT1, you can do the second K at LT2. What the threshold loves is a little bit of work below it, little bit of work right at it, and then a little bit of work above it. That's what's going to help you get better. Don't forget to work on your aerobic power, which is just above your LT2, and don't forget to work on hill reps for strength, gym work for strength, speed work for making all of this a bit easier. I've done lots of videos on all this stuff, and I've actually just started the membership section, which goes into these sessions in a bit more detail. But today was about my threshold progression over years, how long that takes, just showing you some kind of context in how long that takes, and then what led to some of that improvement. So let's go back to that. All right, so on the screen now, I'm now going to go through the different data that I have. Some of it's really lovely, but this is just stuff I've got in a spreadsheet. So some of it's still lovely, it's all perfect, and you can see the nice curves, and you'll get to have a look at that from, 2004, 2007, 2010, 2012, 2013, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2023. This is not always the perfect progression, and that's because we're human. So I had to dabble with, do I still want to be a runner? Maybe I wasn't as focused. Probably between the years of 18 to, 22, well, I partied more and I didn't train as much and I wasn't as consistent. So it's not always a perfect progression. And actually there was times in 2013 that my data was almost as good as it is now. You've also then got to bear in mind that you can tap out your physiology in terms of, it's probably likely that Eliud Kipchoge, his LT1 is probably about 19 km/h. His LT2 is probably 21.5 or maybe even 22. Not everybody can get there, but you can do a great job of helping yourself get the most out of your progression, like I likely have in the last few years, and that's talking about it before, but it's not seeing things like good sleep, good nutrition, emphasis on gym work, not seeing these things as sacrifices to your day because you have to do it for running, and seeing it as a positive. All that good stuff around the training is what allows for continual progression. What's taken me 20 years literally probably could have took 5 or 6. If I was as focused, if I was as dialed in, if I was as knowledgeable, if I had access to what we do now in terms of what other athletes are doing to move their threshold forward, if you get to a place where your threshold doesn't seem to be moving forward as much, you can now easily find what you could add to help. Maybe it's doing some of the threshold stuff on hills. Maybe it's, working on stuff in the gym because you're not strong enough to handle the training that would move it forward. We have access to that now. I didn't back in 2004. It was just me training with a club and we were limited to the knowledge of the coach, etc., etc. And now we've got the internet. Now you've got the bloody running school where I tell you all about this stuff and the recovery stuff. But that didn't exist before. So make use of that. Threshold takes a long time to develop. But if you can literally go from 14 kilometers an hour, which I think is a 3-hour marathon, to moving your threshold to 18 km/h, which is a 2:20 marathon, well, that's a good thing. That means that, it just doesn't tire you out as much to run faster as maybe it used to. So things do move forward. It just requires a lot of dedication. Don't use the word sacrifice. Please go a month without doing some of those nice things like good sleep, good nutrition. You feel like shit. It's a good thing for life to work on your hydration. Yoga's a pretty good thing for life too, and so is meditating, journaling, etc. They all help your psychology, they help your body physically, and they'll just make you feel better about life. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, like, subscribe. If you'd like to see more of this stuff, feel free to check out the membership section or joggingroom.com, where so much info on all of this stuff. Start to prioritize Threshold, start to work on these things, try out some of those sessions, build it into your yearly plan, maybe one session a week specifically dedicated to moving that threshold part of your curve forward like I have here, and not just focusing on the other stuff. Work on it, be patient with it, enjoy your running, it's really bloody hard, but take care.